CBS 2 in Chicago reporting on the gun grab from the Illinois legislature, gleefully signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker, to ban assault-style weapons and to make it so that if you had one, it'll be fine. Just register it with the government. Okay, all right. I'm looking for a Supreme Court ruling on this to come through and actually preserve Second Amendment rights. Yes, even for those people living in the state of Illinois. We bring our next guest on to talk about this issue, what these laws are, how they got there, and what he's doing to fight back against them. Darren Bailey joins us. He's the former state senator for Illinois' 55th district, ran for governor against J.B. Pritzker. You can learn more about him at baileyforillinois.com. Welcome back to the show, Darren. It's good to have you here.
Hey, Annie, it's always nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Of course. I want to give you the opportunity to kind of set the table for our listeners right now, Missourians who are listening who don't know exactly what the law is in Illinois. And I know there are a lot of Illinoisans who don't understand the breadth of what our Illinois state government has done to our Second Amendment rights.
Well, so as of recently, it is illegal to purchase or trade, any what's called an AR platform rifle. It is illegal to manufacture them in the state of Illinois. And here's the irony above everything else. Here's the destructiveness of a party that, I believe, is pushing us more and more towards a socialist Marxist environment, is the very fact that AR stands for Armalite rifle. Armalite was a gun manufacturer up in the Rock Island area that initially developed this style of rifle. So here's the irony that this would all twist and turn around. And, several of these, there are wonderful companies that I toured running for governor up in the Rock Island, Moline area that were still manufacturing these. You can no longer manufacture or sell 50 caliber rifle shells as well in Illinois. So there's the first step. Another step comes in, and Illinois passes the gun registry, a law. All Republicans voted against that, thank goodness. But so therefore, as of January 1st, if you own a gun that is capable of holding more than 10 rounds, that gun must be registered with the Illinois State Police. There's a little more confusion because when someone buys or has bought or purchased a gun in Illinois, we sign up and do the background check. So our name and information is sent to the Illinois State Police, and they run a background check. They do not know, they have never known what actual firearm was purchased. All they know is that either a long gun, a rifle, or a shotgun, or a pistol was purchased. The gun dealer hangs on to those records and must by law hang on to them, I believe, for 10 years. So I want to make sure that there's a little bit of a relief alleviated there, that no one really knows, what you do own. But now,
quick question, if I can.
Yeah.
Can the state subpoena those records from a gun store to say, I'd like to know what guns were purchased on August 2nd of 2018 and get those records from those gun stores?
Well, that is an unknown as of right now. I believe the answer to that has been no. You had to have a reason of fraudulent activity to do something like that with a gun owner, and basically, based on the taxes, it had to be something a little more specific and not necessarily to the purchase of a firearm. So usually ATF comes in and conducts some sort of an audit. But even then, they are not able to keep records. It's just as to the FFL dealer's business. So no, there's a lot. There's a lot of concern here with where we're headed to this, because interestingly enough, isn't it interesting that yesterday at Caseyville at the community center and last week in Chicago and Springfield, informational meetings were held by the Illinois State Police. Now, listen, I want to make sure we understand one thing here in Illinois. Illinois State Police, I have full confidence and trust in that organization and the men and women that serve. They have been put in a very difficult situation, by our governor. But they hold these meetings at 9:30 in the morning. I know there was only 8 people who showed up in Chicago. 4 of them were Moms Demand Action. They were, Second Amendment people. There were 40 that showed up in Springfield, and we had a good crowd. I had publicized it, had a wonderful, pretty good crowd at the Caseyville Community Center. It was pretty well full. But interestingly enough, for the full crowd, there was no PA system. So that you just got to scratch your head at this. Brendan Kelly, St. Clair County is his home. He is the head of the director of the Illinois State Police. He was not there.
Wow.
So, I asked that question. There were 3 Second Amendment organizations that spoke, and I was the only one who spoke as an individual, and that was my first question. Where's he at? And anyway, the spokesperson for the Illinois State Police just said he is unavailable. But most of the questions were answered with, you'll have to refer back to the rules. So the people who are supposed to be enforcing this really don't even know themselves. And as is with a lot of law, anytime, and this is very important for people to remember. So we're all kind of frustrated what we're going to do, and many people stood up and said, well, no, we're not going to be registering anything. That's an infringement on our Second Amendment rights. But one of the most important things to remember is that when you are when you are convicted of a crime, when you are given a ticket, well, then it is up to the county state's attorney to prosecute. So there's the reasoning in making sure that we have constitutional, fearing, freedom-loving sheriffs and state's attorneys in office, because the state's attorney has the ability to completely, basically tear the ticket up, throw it in the trash can. So that happened a lot with the COVID lockdowns, as JB sent the Illinois State Police around when they knew that they had more important things to be doing, but writing tickets to restaurants who were open. So now we come into another area of uncertainty. We pray. There are still several suits that are headed basically upstream to the U.S. Supreme Court. We pray that one of those lands, we believe that this will be stricken down. It's a little frustrating that there have been several elements that have been upheld over the last few months, but I do believe that the lawsuit from the Illinois State Rifle Association will make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that this will be stricken down. And if not, then we have a totally, we've got a whole new scenario that I don't think any American has had to really look at for many decades, is the fact of, when do we, the people, stand on our, stand on the constitutional rights and against a tyrannical government. I pray it doesn't come to that, but it sure seems to be headed that way.
In your estimation, we're speaking with Darren Bailey right now, in your estimation, when does the Supreme Court take up this conversation? Are we years and years away from that? Are we by the next cycle? When might the Illinois residents get their constitutional rights back?
I've heard it could be up to 2 years. Evidently, I think 4 or 5 years ago, a case, I had that information, I don't have it with me right now, a similar case was heard in the state of New York, and it was stricken down. So there are so many similarities that we expect that the same thing will happen for the state of Illinois. So no, it is the legal system. Not being a lawyer and a farmer, I do not understand the process of which lawsuits seem to be heard the next day, and why others take years. But it could take up to 2 years.
I mean, I think that people listening right now are friends and neighbors that live in the state of Illinois who are so incredibly frustrated by this. They feel motivated to do something about it. And I think that, as far as the state legislature goes, you've served in the House and the Senate in the state of Illinois. There are super minorities of Republicans in that body of government that is supposed to most closely represent the people of Illinois. How important is it for Republicans to gain a voice in our legislature in the state?
It's detrimental to the future of our state and our nation. Even though we sometimes think and seem to have a voice, then there's this mindset of weak-kneed Republicans, just kind of sitting back and turning these positions into careers, and that is equally as dangerous. And I think that, for the listeners out there all across Missouri and across Illinois, the most important aspect of this is that we, the people, need to, develop a relationship with our elected officials. We just because, if I'm a Republican and I have a Republican state rep, state senator, or congressman, we cannot assume that they're doing, the right thing, because the bureaucracy of this entire mess sometimes lends itself to not necessarily corruption, but for people to kind of sell out on their values. But even in areas, running for governor the last 2 years, being up in Chicago in the high populated area, Annie, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of good Second Amendment loving people up there. And unfortunately, our voice is not heard because it's not heard. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and people fail to run for precinct committee person. People fail to show up at the town halls. People fail to, step into the elected official's office. And when they're there and question, hey, why did you do this? Or even maybe, admonish them for, hey, thank you so much for what you are doing. And that process is not really, it's really non-existent. And until we, the people, engage and understand what is taking place, only then will we be able to turn the tide of, I believe, this dangerous direction that our republic is headed. So it really is. There's a lot of this that still resides in the hands of the people, but people throw their hands up. Oh my, I'm just one voice. It doesn't matter. And that alone is our problem.
Well, we appreciate you for speaking up at that Caseyville hearing, and we'll keep in contact with you as this progresses, because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about it, and certainly a lot of anger as well. Just the direction this state has headed has been very anti-constitutional, and it's unfortunate that in the state of Illinois you just don't have the same rights that Americans in the other states do.
That is right, and I just encourage anyone listening to stand firm on the Constitution. Stand firm. So.
Thank you. Darren Bailey, always love talking to you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Former,
Bye-bye.
former state senator for Illinois' 55th District. You can find him online at baileyforillinois.com, on Twitter at Darren Bailey IL.